Okay, so joining me on Fan TV this afternoon is Phantom's defenceman and coach Tom Norton. So, Tom, first of all, how are you keeping in these difficult times at the moment?
I'm keeping all right. I think I'm into about week 8 since the place that I work at decided to obviously keep their employees at home. I've not been furloughed, so I've still been working. So it's kind of given me something to get up and do every day. So I'm quite glad of that. Lots of dog walks for the hours exercise a day. I've always been trying to go on the shopping runs as well because it just gets me out of the house. And obviously we've had the news about golf courses being opened. So hoping to get myself on a golf course at some point and go and play as well. A little bit of normality, and it's kind of what I do a lot in the summer anyway.
Can you play a bit? Do you rate yourself?
I don't rate myself. No, I just enjoy it. I'm on a good day. I'll shoot anything in that. I'll shoot 90s, maybe a little bit below. On a bad day, I can be over 100 shots and really getting my money's worth on the course. But no, I just quite enjoy it. I guess the hand-eye coordination. I have a nice little walk around for 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, nice. It's nice.
Okay, so just sort of going back to when you first started at Phantoms, really, obviously you were juniors in Nottingham. That was where you came through. It's obviously your hometown and everything like that. You had a bit of time down the road in Milton Keynes. And then obviously you came, I think it was 2012, came to Phantoms on a two-way.
Yeah, I believe the year before I was in Milton Keynes, like you said, and then maybe 3 seasons before, 3 or 4 seasons prior to that, I was part of the Nottingham Lions as well, and kind of on a two-way with the Panthers, and I guess kind of more of you could kind of say like it was like an apprentice kind of thing, training a lot, just learning how to be a professional, how to take care of yourself. Had some great role models there to take stuff from, some amazing imports as well. There's too many people to name, but yeah, I was very fortunate there. And my first year away from Nottingham was obviously in Milton Keynes. Nick Poole signed me. At the time, I think I was 21, and it was like the first time I'd obviously played away from Nottingham. Would have been like a proper regular shift going every night, and I think mentally it was quite tough for me. I think I started the season pretty well, and then through like November to probably January time, I really struggled for form, and I was up and down, and it was quite frustrating. But credit to Milton Keynes and the team that they had. They had a real good group of guys. The coach was really supportive as well, and kind of got through that and learned how to mentally prepare myself for a game and the ups and downs during a game, because you can be physically ready for a game and have everything going, but the mental aspect is massive part of the game, because things don't always go right, and you've got to know how to deal with them basically on the spot, and you get probably about a minute to deal with it, and then you're back on the ice again, and you don't want to make that same mistake. And then from there, I ended up signing back in Nottingham, and that got announced. But the import quota got put up again for that season. And the coach at the time, Corey Nelson, he's always looked after me really well, and he kind of just called me and said, like, look, you're more than welcome to stay, but your spot now, we'll be putting an import in that position, and we want you to develop and stuff. So if you want to try and go elsewhere, you can. And it was quite tough because it was quite late on in the summer that it happened, and thankfully John Kinniston signed me, and I played a year there. And I suppose at the time, I think we finished 8th in the league. We got that last playoff spot. And I suppose there wasn't as much pressure, and I kind of, like I said, I figured out how to play mentally better as well. And I think I had a pretty good year. I think I got defenceman of the year as well, and then I ended up signing back in Nottingham after signing back in Peterborough. So it kind of, it created a little bit of turmoil. But I'd signed back in Peterborough, and then Panthers came back again asking for me, and it was like, well, it's my hometown club. They were offering me the ice time, and it was, an opportunity. And thankfully, John and the owners at the club at the time and everybody was understanding of it, and allowed me to obviously leave that contract and go back to Nottingham and kind of not burn any bridges. And I managed to play quite a lot that year in a sixth defenceman role. There was injuries that happened as well, so my ice time was quite a lot. I managed to win a Challenge Cup when I was there, playing some of the Continental Cup games as well, which was a really good experience. But then the year after that, I had signed a 2-year deal in Nottingham, and they had announced me back again. And then they announced that the imports were going up again. And I think at the time I was turning 24. And I was pleased with how the year went, and the coaching staff were pleased. But when the league decides to put the import quota up, you're going to sign those imports, and you're going to put them in position. So kind of the sixth D-man position that I wanted was kind of going to mean that I was going to be playing in a seventh D-man position. And during all this time, I was still working at the school that I worked at the time. So there was times on a Sunday night when I'd be getting back from Cardiff, Edinburgh, Dundee at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then having to wake up at 7:30 to get myself into work on Monday. Like I say, at the time I was 24. I'd been with the Panthers for quite some time, and for me to play for your hometown club that you grew up supporting was a dream come true, and I was very, very fortunate to be given that opportunity and looked after so well by the club. So I took the decision then to ask to be released from my contract, because I was kind of like, I didn't want to sit there and potentially not play. I'll get very, very minimal ice time when I'd played a lot the year before. Again, Corey was really understanding and supported me in my decision. And I think for me, it got to the point where I could have the best of both worlds, play a lot, but also then have my job and, still stay in Nottingham, because I kind of had no desire to move around or go anywhere else, because I knew there was no real future for me to make a lot of money in the elite league. I wasn't naive enough to think that. I knew my role and what it would be. So I knew I had to have I knew I had to have a career, a proper career and a job. So I decided to obviously stick with that, and it kind of worked out well, because the year before, when obviously I'd signed back in Nottingham, after signing in Peterborough, Slava had got in touch with me when he was in Slough, and again I'd talked to him quite a bit, but just travel wise, and obviously it would have been by myself, it just wasn't feasible. So I still had his number, and before Panthers announced me back for that 2-year, the second year of my deal, before the import quota all got put up, he'd got in touch with me about coming to Peterborough, because he'd joined the season before for half the year. And at the time, I kind of said, like, look, obviously I'm on a 2-year deal, I'm waiting to see if they're going to keep me and announce me back. But I said, obviously if you don't, I said, you'd probably be one of my first port of calls. And, they announced me back, and then what happened. So I got in touch with him, and he managed to bring me back to the club. And it was good, because obviously I'd burnt no bridges, and everybody seemed more than happy to have me back. So kind of it was a little bit of those 2 or 3 years, back and forth, changing. But obviously the rest is kind of history now, and I've been in Peterborough for, I'll be going into my 8th season, 7th straight year, and I kind of don't know where the time's gone, but obviously it's been pretty successful, and I've really enjoyed my time, and I'm glad I made the decision to come back. But I think finally, with regards to how it all happened in Nottingham as well, like I held no grudges towards it. It's a professional ice hockey team. They're going to do what they can. They're going to do what they're going to do, along with the league rules and what they're allowed to get. And unfortunately, it kind of meant that my position, I was going to be knocked down. So I had to kind of accept that and, look after myself. And, I've still played a couple of games on a 2-way contract with them, and guested a few times. So obviously still had kept a good relationship with them because, like I say, they looked after me really well, and I always appreciate what they did for me.
Okay, so obviously you came back to Peterborough. You've been here for quite a few years, as you said now. So if we just fast forward to last season, obviously top scoring defenseman in the league in the end. I think might have been your highest scoring season with Phantoms to date, possibly. You won obviously a couple of awards in our awards. You won an award with the league as well. So how do you kind of, now you've had a few weeks to kind of look back at last season and how it all went? Obviously we know what happened in the cup and everything, but how do you kind of assess the season as a whole, personally and as a team?
I think personally, it's always nice to get recognised and obviously be awarded stuff from the league and from the team. But I think any player would tell you, obviously, they'd switch all of that for a team trophy and to have team success. Like I say, it's nice to be recognised and obviously have a good season, but it kind of it'd feel a lot nicer if we had a team trophy. And I think, especially with how the season end and obviously Robby and Jimmy retiring as well, it would have been nice to have capped the season off with a trophy for them as well. And it was nice. Like I say, it's always good to be given awards, but definitely team awards I would take over. As a team, I think we had what, third in the league. I think we ended up finishing, was it?
Yeah.
And we had that real good run of form as well. I think we grew as the season went. We proved obviously that we could contend and battle with any team. I think we changed our style of play, like Slava's talked about. I think as a defence core with my role, it was to kind of get the defensemen improving their first pass, jumping into the play a little bit more, and obviously if you watch the games and obviously you see there was a lot more switches with the D switching with the forward. So instead of playing as 3 forwards and 2D in the offensive zone, we were playing as a unit at 5 really, and anybody could take anybody's position. And if a D-man went low, it was the forward's job then to cover. It wasn't on the D-man then like being out of position. And it was quite enjoyable to play. Like, I look at myself as a kind of an all-round defenseman. Obviously, I like to get forward, so it gave me a lot of freedom there to go forward, and I guess that kind of reflected in my points and my goals this year. And I mean, if you look at someone like Callum as well, I think it reflected in because he had his biggest points total. I would imagine Robbo probably would have improved on his as well if it wasn't for injuries. You saw Robbie Feds getting forward a lot more. You saw Brad as well and long skating the puck a lot more. And obviously we had Joe Hazeldine coming towards the end of the year, and he's kind of already got that in his package. He skates the puck and moves so well. It's really good to see on the ice. And obviously looking at the cup final, obviously we worked really hard to get there. We always do every year. We make it a priority to get ourselves into the semi-final of the cup, and then it's like 2 games and you never know. And we did brilliant away at Hull to come away with that score, because we never really do that well at Hull. I think we have struggled there in years past, but we pulled it together midweek and put in a real fighting team performance. It kind of it's frustrating. The Telford games kind of got away from us a little bit, and it's not like we sat there and planned that to happen. We worked really hard prior to the finals, preparing ourselves, getting mentally ready, and it kind of just slipped away. I mean, you can't take away Telford either. They're a good side, real strong team, and they over the two games they definitely deserved the cup. And obviously it hurt quite a bit, but obviously we were trying to prepare ourselves to push through into the playoffs. And I believe that weekend before it all got called off, we won both games, didn't we? Basingstoke and Swindon. We had another weekend of league games before, so you could say we were picking up form again to head into the playoffs. And I like that format of the the 6 games that you play, and then the top 2 go to Coventry. I think it makes it less of a lottery getting there, because obviously playing a quarter final over 2 legs, and it can be anybody's game over the night. So I think it kind of does get the best 4 teams to Coventry then. But I think, again, you look at the league and how it's structured, and you'd say we're a middle of the budget-wise, we're a middle of the pack kind of budget team. And again, every year with Slava's team since I've been here, we're up there fighting with the guys fighting with the teams that are paying out the big budgets. And I think that shows a lot really to the characters that Slava brings in, and how we tactically work together as a team.
Okay, and obviously for the last few years, your role as well as playing has been on the coaching side of things as well. I'm sure a lot of people know that, but just for those who might not know, do you just want to kind of explain what your role is on that side of things?
So I work obviously with Slava, and obviously I have Jason who runs Bucko, who runs the D during the games, because it's quite hard to say who's up next when I'm on the ice. I've done it a few times and I managed to make it work, but obviously it's another thing to think about along with playing. So when I first obviously started doing it, obviously having Jason there as the assistant coach and him doing that, obviously it took that kind of pressure off and allowed me just to play. What me and Jason try and do during the game is, especially if I'm on the bench or even if I'm on the ice, if we notice something, we try and jot down a time of when it happened. So then obviously we can cut that video and take a look. I try to review a lot of the goals against that we concede and what we can do, and obviously get in contact with Slava during the week, usually on a Monday and a Tuesday, and they can normally be quite long phone calls discussing what happened, especially obviously if we've maybe lost a couple of games there. Obviously we're trying to review and get better. Like I say, it's a lot of phone calls. On the ice wise, on Wednesdays we have we do an hour and a half training. So usually like the last 15 minutes is when we pay special focus to certain parts of the game. So whether it's power play, penalty kill, stuff for the goalies, forwards might be working on their face-offs or doing stuff in the forward end. So sometimes I'd have time there to work with the D. I mean, a lot of the focus this year has been how we move the puck, moving our feet. Just a lot of quick feet drills, how we move the puck, getting the puck on the blue line as well, and walking the blue line and getting shots on the net, because it's a big part of the game, especially having that part as part of your offensive tactics as well, because I think sometimes you can get stuck playing down low a lot with the puck, and getting it up to the top and getting the puck through on net can create a lot of scoring opportunities. Sending it north and south and east to west, it gets teams thinking. It gives you a lot more different ways to attack the net than just obviously playing with it down low. So we watched a lot of videos of Swedish teams and when the World Championships are on as well, and how they play. So we've tried to, obviously none of us are to their level, but try and adopt some of the things that they do. The sad thing is, obviously, we only have 2 hours and a bit on the ice, 2.5 hours on the ice each week. So, it's sometimes tough to get through everything, and it takes a little bit of time sometimes to implement it. But I think if you look over the last 3 seasons, there's been something that we've tried to improve on each year. So, like this year, it's been trying to get the pucks through to the net a little bit better, and the D joining the rush a lot more. Season before, it was trying to focus on those switches, where the forward brings the puck up and you switch in. So I think each year we've improved on those parts, and during the early years of Slava's days, when we were probably setting up a little bit more defensively, working on that D zone and the swarm defense that we like to do when we try and get 3 guys in the corner and get out with the puck as well. We try to focus on something each year and try and improve on it. And I think keeping the same guys year in, year out, like he does, that same core group of guys, makes it easy, because you're not having to teach 10 guys new things. You only are maybe having to teach 1 or 2. So yeah, no, it's definitely enjoyable, and as you know, Slava's very tactical and is always looking to improve and move with the times as well. And I think, going on the record of the last few years, I think you'd say it's definitely been very successful.
Is coaching something you've got one eye on for when you stop playing, or is that something you haven't thought too much about just yet?
Who knows? When Slava asked me to, kind of start doing this and be a part of the coaching setup, it was kind of like, well, what's the worst that could come of it? Really, I get to, speak to him a lot more, learn from him, who is arguably probably one of the best coaches in the league, tactical wise, and the way he looks at the game, and obviously probably develop myself, and obviously how to develop other players as well, because we've got a young team. So I don't know, if the opportunity arose, I guess I'd weigh it up and see, but at the moment I'm still fully focused on obviously playing and still developing myself as a player, and picking up little coaching things as I go.
Okay, so just sort of moving on to next season. Obviously, we've announced that you're back for another year. So was it kind of an easy decision just to stay? And then do you think you're kind of at the point now where, I know players have said it before, I know Jimmy said it kind of gets to the point where you think there's no sort of real reason to really go elsewhere at this point?
No, exactly. I think for me, obviously the elite league dream vanished way back. And I kind of, made that decision that I was going to focus more on my actual career outside of hockey and moving forward with that, and still play hockey and improve and get better, but more importantly, just play and get lots of ice time and enjoy it. As for moving around and whatnot, for me it's Peterborough just works. It's a good distance. We've got guys from Nottingham that are travelling there as well, so you're not having to travel by yourself. I enjoy the way, obviously, we're coached, the way that we play, the opportunities that I get through playing, how the club's ran, how everybody's looked after, the supporters, the fans, how close it is. I mean, yeah, would I like a nicer looking ice rink to play in? Yeah, probably, but actually I quite enjoy it. It gives us a little bit of an advantage, kind of know all the bouncers and how it is. So, I think you have to weigh everything up, and I'm turning 30 in June, and really what's the point? Why try and chase something somewhere else when it works where you are? You're still driven to win. The club still looks after everybody really well, and I guess back in the old EPL days, players would move around quite a bit. I guess there was more team housing. There was probably a little bit more money as well, so players could chase the money a little bit more. But it's kind of a little bit different now in the NIHL. It's kind of it's a lot more. Players kind of stick to their local area where they are and stay close.
Okay, so just sort of again looking at next season. Obviously, there'll be a few new faces because Jimmy and Robby have gone. How difficult do you think it will be? Because I know guys have said Jimmy and Robby, obviously the fans see what they do on the ice and how good they've been for so many years now. But obviously there's the aspect that people don't see, and that's them in the room as well. So they're big kind of influences that probably will be hard to replace. So how do you kind of think things will go, and how difficult do you think it will be kind of to maybe adjust a little bit to life after them?
Well, I think first and foremost with Peterborough have been very lucky to have two guys to that calibre of player locally, because obviously it's lucky in that respect, because there's not many teams that get guys that are locally there. So to have two players like that, they've been very lucky for many number of years now, and we've been lucky as a team to have those two. I mean, arguably Robby's probably one of the best, stay-at-home defensemen, penalty-killing defensemen in the league. He moves the puck well, he works hard, he very rarely gets beat. and he's an absolute role model in the dressing room to all the young kids that are in there, of how to prepare, how to communicate, how you should look after yourself. So for Robby, he's going to be a big miss. And obviously Jimmy's your captain again. How he prepares, how he looks at the game, but more so like how he speaks in the dressing room. He's not the one who shouts and jumps up and down, but when it's time to speak and say something, it's very thought out. And I mean, you only have to look at his performances over the years when he's scored those big goals and basically been captain clutch for us. It's going to be a massive loss for the team in those two positions. But like anything, you've got to move on, and there'll be new players coming in. There'll be players that are still here that are going to have to, step up and fill those roles, because sadly players can't play forever, and whether it's through family, job commitments, or age, players are going to move on, and it's time for, like I say, those players that were maybe in smaller roles or still developing now to take that next step in their game and be bigger parts of the team. And it's definitely exciting because it's going to be good to see who takes these opportunities and grabs them with both hands, really. But for me, I've known Jimmy since Jimmy and Robby, since I was probably 16, 17, probably 16, and having played against them probably at conference weekends as well previous. And I've spent a lot of time with Jimmy in Nottingham as well. He was actually one of my stallmates. We sat next to each other. So it's going to be very weird walking into the dressing room and not having them two there. But like I say, it's also very exciting to see where we're going to go as a club now, and which players are going to step up into those roles and fill those very, very big shoes.
Okay, and last question. Obviously, I warned you about this one off camera before we started. So, your dream line of players you've played with in Peterborough. So, one goalie, one defenseman to play alongside you, 3 forwards with 1 import.
Wow. Right. Okay. Now, I'm probably going to keep this Nottingham card based as much as I can. So, at centre, I probably have Welds. On the wing, I have Mark Levers. And obviously, I've got to include myself, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, I'd play on defence. I'd have 55 Greg Pick as my D partner. And the import and the goalie. Oh wow! I think I'm gonna have to go. Oh, this is difficult because I know if anybody watches this, if anybody does anyway, probably when they find out I'm talking, they probably won't click on it and watch it. Oh man, import. Probably more so because he probably teased me up for a lot of one-timers. I'd say Paddy. So I've got to show him a little bit of love there. So that means obviously goalie-wise I can't have an import. So sorry, Yanis, you're out, mate. So goalie-wise, as a goalie, I'm torn. I'll probably have to say maybe Damien King. Yeah, I'll go with Damien.
Kinger, Norts, Picker, Paddy, Leeds and Welds.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Very tough on the goalie selection. But I know Damo would probably cry if I didn't pick him. So I'll pick Damo.
I'm sure that'll be an interesting card to practice as well. Be interested to hear that one.
Oh yeah, no, definitely we've had some good laughs in the car over the years. It's a dressing room away from the dressing room sometimes. You spend a lot of time. It's an hour's drive to practice there and back. and then obviously all the away games that we do and the home games. So it's we're in each other's pockets for a lot of the year. So it's we've definitely created some good friendships and some close bonds there. So it's been enjoyable.
Okay, thank you, Nort. Hope you continue to stay safe and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the chat. It's given me something different to do, and obviously to everyone, stay safe, stay home, and hopefully we can get out the other end of this and enjoy some ice hockey at the start of the season.